Oh my God. I finished my last second tasks just before the intro countdown finished, namely having to send the details of the stream to Aidsy because he apparently wants to join us, which will be good. So I have let him know. I'll move my microphone a bit closer. I have no idea how big a difference that's making. Yes, so hopefully that means Aidsy will be joining us somewhere between 5 minutes and an hour from now. It's always hard to be sure where exactly things will end up with young Aidsy. But like I said, hopefully seeing him soon-ish, maybe. Who knows? Things can happen. Things can always happen. But one way or the other, what are you up to? Tuesday night. It's still a challenge to keep track of days. Some people might argue that, man, after all this time, you should have got better at keeping track of what day of the week it is. I don't think I've actually got worse. The alternative would be to get worse. And I don't think I've actually become worse at keeping track of which day of the week it is. But it still escapes me sometimes. It's Tuesday night because this is my first one of the week. I don't do streams on Monday night, generally speaking. Therefore, it's Tuesday. Yes. Good evening, Raiders. How are you this fine evening? My little lemon lime drink. Hello, Celtic King. What is the weather supposed to be doing this week? We're meant to have one hot day, I think. Bit warmer tomorrow, then 31 on Thursday, then a bit cooler on Friday and a lot of rain. And then a rainy weekend, probably. Milder weekend. There we go. Hello, Justin. That's the weather report because that's the non-stop exciting content you get on the Angry Aussie channel. Justin, what area of the GameStop saga are you talking about? In general, hedge funds being fucked over is hilarious because they are all criminals who should be in prison. Celtic, no, there's no alcohol in this drink. I have something I want to try in the second half, though. I've been milk clarifying a fruity Sazerac, and it smells really good. So I think when I finish, and it's just this, I made this with my, carbonation machine. Christ, I keep forgetting. I've got to take the CO2 canister in to get replaced because it's empty. And I keep forgetting. So, yes, no alcohol, but maybe some later. Are you ready? Oh, wow, you've been walking 10 kilometers without leaving home. What is that, round and round the yard? Which is a pretty solid effort if you've done that. I had a short walk today. I've never actually measured it. It's a couple of kilometers, though. It's 2 or 3 kilometers. I don't know. This is like park up the road from my place. I go with Mrs. Angry and walk up around the park and then back home. I've never properly measured it, but it's 2 or 3 kilometers. Fox, a horrible joke time. Maybe we should introduce hedge fund people to an Irish-French person named Gil O'Teen. Yeah, them getting hoist on their own petard is pretty interesting. Justin, yes, I've seen The Big Short. I always recommend that if anyone wants to get truly angry, because The Big Short lays bare the degree of criminality in the stock market. And there's no other word for it. It's a criminal enterprise. It is a protected racket, and the people behind it are a combination of incompetent and malicious, but they're all fucking criminals. And that includes their political enablers on both sides of the political spectrum. They're all fucking criminals. Celtic King, I think it's fair to say that the Angry Cocktail channel is a natural progression of the alcohol making videos I was doing on my YouTube channel over the last couple of years. It's the natural progression. Decided to give it its own home. Oh, sorry. Raiders, you allergic to agapanthus? I'm so glad I don't have any significant allergies. Various friends who have hay fever and allergies talk about the misery of spring and summer, and I feel for you. That would really suck. That's, yeah. Nature and biology are so fucking weird. I had it explained that hay fever and allergies are basically your body's immune system going off the deep end, misidentifying something as an extreme threat, so going into overdrive to fight it. Like the hay fever and allergy symptoms is your body trying to flush out what it thinks is really dangerous. And in the vast majority of cases, it's completely, or actually in terms of allergies, particularly the ones that are dangerous, it's your body's reactions being out of whack, and a thing that's meant to protect you behaving in a way that hurts you, possibly even kills you. Bodies, they're stupid. I'm going to get back on the intelligent design bandwagon soon and how much I hate them. So that rate is deadheading. Oh, right. Deadheading agapanthus got you up to 10 kilometers. Fine mist when produced. Oh, wow. Yes, no. If you hit them with a whippersnipper, that's going to aerosolize it, spray it all into the air. Not surprised. That's instant asthma. Justin, you want to invest in GameStop last year? Yes. I mean, considering it's a juggling act, because you got to find a buyer when you want to sell, and often simply the act of selling drives the price down, but is certainly at various points, you can see in a very short time frame, I think some of the returns were in the 1,000% or more, thousands of percent return if someone bought here and sold here. And of course, the price has been doing that since everyone found out what was happening. But yes, some people, it's like Bitcoin. People who got in early on Bitcoin and didn't sell it or didn't lose it because they didn't take it seriously, some of them literally made tens of millions of dollars on Bitcoin. They invested a really small amount of money, hundreds or in some cases thousands of dollars, and the return ended up being in the tens of millions of dollars, which is absolutely wild. Shannon, as a biologist, the human body is fucked in so many ways. And hello to you too. All All right, I'm now getting suspicious of Aidsy, although the same thing, if I say his name 3 times, he might appear, because he pinged me far too early, like I wasn't at the laptop, I wasn't set up and going, saying, send me the link, and I just went, yeah, fucking hold your horses, son. And then just as I went live, I emailed the link and text. I think I sent the text message. I'm sure I did. It'd be embarrassing if it's still sitting. No, I did. I sent it. So I sent him things saying be emailed, and then I haven't heard from him. And he often, does reply text somewhat unnecessarily, and he hasn't this time. So I feel like in like a 15-minute period, something's happened or distracted him or whatever. But we shall see. Like I said, saying his name 3 times, he could easily appear instantaneously. So Raiders, the Hidalinas from LTT told his audience he'd increased their donations 5-fold to invest. He's now investing 50K in stocks. I don't know who that is. I think you might have brought him up in a previous live stream. I don't know what LTT is. While it's funny, and I do mean funny, to be tanking hedge funds, I think it's fucking hilarious, and there should be more of it. I don't see the Redditors who are doing all this as being particularly special or admirable people, or nor do I see them as particularly evil. I don't know anything about them, but it's important to understand that a lot of the people who have been, keeping the chatter going, they became as profit-driven and obsessed as any hedge fund person once they saw opportunities to make a lot of money. So, okay, I think I vaguely have heard of Linus Tech Tips, but I don't really know anything about them. But, who knows what's going to happen. It was fascinating the degree to which this GameStop saga absolutely highlighted how much the stock exchange is fucking bullshit, like absolute fucking bullshit. It's roulette for rich pricks. The stock exchange used to mean something. Hedge funds are the worst, but the stock exchange generally is just a steaming pile of shit now. The stock exchange used to mean a particular thing. People who had, like, when you created a new stock, it's because you wanted to start a new company and to raise capital. You'd offer stock in the company, and if you had a good track record or you had an idea people thought was good, people would buy the stock, which would give you the funds to start the company, and off you go. And so that in that stock, they owned a certain percentage of the company. And if the company did well, people who owned stock would get dividends, so yay, they're making money. And then people would see, oh, that company's doing well and paying dividends. I would like to buy some shares in that company because I think that company will be successful long-term, continue to turn a profit and pay dividends. Or the opposite. People think, oop, I don't think that company's going to be around anymore. I think this stock is either going to be worth either a lot less or completely worthless because the company will go under. So I'm going to try and sell it. But there was a day when the stock exchange was about financing companies in a meaningful way, and B, recognizing some real value in those companies. For decades now, at least since the 80s, has been just this speculative bullshit. Stock prices go up and down in ways that have no bearing whatsoever on the viability or profitability of the companies. It's just these Wall Street fuckheads who are gambling and scamming people purely and simply, and they suck. And speaking of people who are going to strike down the Wall Streeters, it's AZ.
Hey, Don.
What's happening?
Hello. Can you hear me?
Yeah, well, I get the impression you can't hear me, though.
No,
Is that what's happening
I can
there?
hear you beautifully, actually.
Okay.
It makes my heart sing with glee.
All right.
And I'm going to clean up my screen because there's a little piece of dust that makes me look like I've got a big pirate scar. And while it's kind of cool, at the same time, it's kind of disturbing. Because every now and again it goes on my nose, and I go, oh,
That's
I've got a cunt face.
Yeah.
So, no one wants that.
I thought there was a bug on my screen, and it turns out it was just the artwork in the background, so that's okay. So
that's all right. You get that. Oh my word! The whole screen moves around, but it's I did not did that. No, don't go up.
Oh, because it's touch sensitive, and you've cut yourself off. I'm sure he'll be back in a minute. He's just found out if you start hedging it. Yes, Shieldsy, I did see that Screech from Saved by the Bell died from cancer. He was only 44, which is a bit scary. Justin, it's not just shorting that should be illegal. It's all the speculative bullshit and debt consolidation and straight up fucking scams that Wall Street play should be illegal. It's like the way the fucking vultures buy a company that actually is really asset rich and then run it into the ground and destroy it, and then make a profit selling off its assets. And they don't care how many lives they destroy in the meantime. It's just, again, the Wall Street brokers are the scum of the fucking earth. They are greedy, rapacious, cruel, spiteful pieces of shit. They produce nothing of value. That was the other thing. The stock exchange used to provide value to the world in that you would you would do a stock release to raise money to start up or expand a company, and that company being successful would employ people and produce things that were of value, and which is not to say companies listed on the stock exchange don't employ people and produce things of value. It's just that the behavior of the stock exchanges has ceased to be that productive behavior and has become this purely speculative bullshit. Speaking of speculative, AIDS's come back.
Did I just disappear? Gone?
Yeah, when you were fiddling with your screen saying, "What's that?" you effectively hung up the link. So,
right.
So maybe don't fiddle with
spacey, because you can do this, right, and you can move your
because it's touch sensitive, yes. And maybe don't do that during a stream if you don't want to disappear randomly. Just a thought.
I'm confused and I'm not happy.
Yeah, well, there you go. Live and learn, as the saying goes.
I've learned, but I don't think I'm going to live. I think I'm going to go out in a blaze of glory. Come at me, copper.
Yes, we're here for a good time, not a long time.
Doesn't even smell good.
No.
Where have you been, though?
You've got a bin. That's nice.
and I missed.
That's okay. That's what happens off screen stays off screen. That's,
It's like when you throw like something very light and it goes fluff, 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 fluff.
yes. Yeah. It does not behave in the way you wish it to.
It's all right. All the litter's taken care of now. And I'm trialing a new thing.
Yeah.
I'm not going to speak unless spoken to.
Right.
So you could Brady Bunch it up and I'd just be going, And they say, someone said, AZ blah, question, or AZ blah, you're a fag, or AZ blah, you're as gay as a row of boats, or blah, you've sucked more dick than a boys doing vacuum cleaner, or blah, you're pretty.
There was always a joke about teenage boys sticking their dick in a vacuum cleaner, and that always, frankly, sounded terrifying to me.
You'd never do it.
No,
you'd never do it. As soon as you mention it, people should go right.
Yeah.
Because
yes.
guys do it. Guys do it when they're young, and they never do it again. But guys have ended up in fucking hospital. Because their cock goes bloop into the vacuum cleaner and they go, I can't get that off without ripping my cock off. And so they end up going to hospital with a long tube sticking out their pants and nobody's pretending they don't know what's going on. And the way the doctors get it off is they pour a whole bunch of lube down the end and warm the pipe while the nurses laugh. And then the lube comes out and they go, bloop, and then out it comes and they go, leave that alone for a few days. It'll shrink back down to size. And if it doesn't, come on back in. It's probably going to go all blue and red and you'll see broken veins. Normal.
Oof.
Well, not normal, but, but
it is what it is. Yeah.
And then your lad goes away with a red face and crying. And either the dorm mistress or their mother goes,
oh, damn.
My son, why?
Why?
Say in church. So there you go.
Oh my God. There was Chuck Palahniuk. I've never known how to pronounce his last name, but the guy who wrote Fight Club. He wrote a few other things. Nothing was near as successful as Fight Club. And he also did a bunch of short stories. And it was 10 or 15 years ago. It was quite a while ago.
He also did American Psycho.
No, that was Bret Easton Ellis.
Bret Easton Ellis did American Psycho. Sorry.
Yeah. And it was like 10 or 15 years ago, he'd released some short stories and was doing a tour reading them. That's all cool. And he had one that's like super gross and was making people sick when he reads it. And I was like, oh yeah, and I found it, and it was called Guts. And it made me think of it because boys doing terrible things for their masturbation fantasy. There's this lady who finds out one time, whether it was in the bath, sort of sitting there when the water was being let out in the plug hole, or in a swimming pool with a filter or a jacuzzi, but he found that the suction on his butt gave him a huge boner. And he'd sort of do it deliberately and jack it and whatnot. And at one point, he's in a swimming pool or something, and the guts being held out. As he swims up away from him, prolapses, and everyone's just freaking out and screaming. And he's like swimming up what, and he sees there's this trail behind him of reddish brown, and he suddenly realizes that's his intestine trailing back, and he says things like being able to see a peanut in it or something, and from his inverted thing. And I kind of thought it was funny, silly, like teenage boy gross out stuff, but I'm going, dude, it's not that disgusting. I mean, it's just like
I've known people who've done that and then stuffed it back in and lived.
Yes. That's actually a porn subgenre, which freaks me out.
No, I know a family member who did that.
Oh.
And I was the only one he told. And I said, get thee to a quack, sir.
Yeah, because that's bad.
I said, I'm a bit embarrassed. And I said, quacks have seen it all and you
Yeah.
are of an age
Yeah.
where this thing should not be left alone. And so he did, and the quack said, we're going to sort out your diet. And a social worker came around to his house and said, right, first thing we're going to do is we're going to clean all the dead flies off your bench. Next thing we're going to do is we're going to make sure you only eat the ripe vegetables. And the next thing we're going to do is we're going to clean all the shit off the eggs before you boil them. And we're also
Bad.
going to cook smaller pieces of meat and cut them up finer.
And chew more.
We're going to also put sauces with them that are going to be easy to make. And he had a much better time of it after that.
Oof, that's good.
I worry because I know that I am looking at the same experience one day if I'm not very careful. Because I told you of my hospital adventure.
Yeah, it's
photos.
It's a thing.
For fuck's sake, photos. Come on.
Yeah.
You know.
But honestly, this was kind of like the Marquis de Sade, because I knew someone had a copy of the 120 Days of Sodom, and I was like, "What's this all about?" And I found it really boring. It was just like really repetitive. Is this just obsessive, like, ooh, when he's torturing these people and chopping their bits off and putting their heads in steel cages, then superheating that so it melted their heads. And I'm like, okay, so you're being nasty and gross. It's not sexy. It's not. And I suppose he was getting a rise out of people, particularly at the time. But I have to admit to a massive sense of disappointment reading the Marquis de Sade, because it's just like,
Marquis de Sade at the time was getting a massive rise out of the church and was titillating the Parisian society because he was dealing with the taboo. And anyone who deals with taboo is somebody who gets the sexual buzz of the day. And the whole BDSM thing is not new, but it wasn't mainstream until the Marquis de Sade brought it out into the open. The reason the Marquis de Sade got into so much fucking trouble is he killed a servant girl by auto-asphyxiating her. He hanged her accidentally, and it was very difficult to explain that away. As such, he didn't, and they jailed the fuck out of him for it. And the only thing that stopped him being guillotined was that several of the other servants testified and told police and investigators and Sûreté, because they had one at that point. While they were being interviewed, they were crying and they were saying, oh, yes, she would boast about how awesome it was and wanted all of us to try it. And was pushing him to go further and further, but he wouldn't. Of course, one day he did.
Till the day he did,
And they were doing this unbidden. They got to the servants before they got to him. It was one of the cleverer pieces of investigation I've ever read. They rounded all them up and said, he killed her, didn't he? And they said, well, yeah, he did, and she wanted him to. Well, probably not wanted him to, but it was clearly a fuck up because of blah, 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 blah. And they turned around in the trial and said, yeah, Judge, it was kind of one of those things. And apparently the judge, who was a libertarian, went, Marquis, you're going to jail for this, mate. Because she's fucking dead, dude.
Yeah.
and there's no getting out of that.
Yeah, it's at
You
least
know,
manslaughter. It's reckless disregard.
yeah, yeah. It was well. They dropped it down from they dropped it down to the French crime of sexual manslaughter.
Hmm.
Because there was such a thing at the time. Because slap
Yeah.
and tickle was the thing, and sometimes women would slap their men in the wrong place and kill them, and sometimes men had slapped their women in the wrong place and kill them, and there was such a thing called sexual manslaughter. So they dropped it down to, because it was murder, and then they dropped it down to sexual manslaughter, and then there was all these testimonies came in from the servants, and they said, well, all right. But they jailed him. And then the church got involved and said, he's such a depraved motherfucker that he shouldn't be allowed to write. And that was the thing that nearly killed him. And he eventually was writing in shit on his bed sheets. And his last works were, penned in shit on his bed sheets. And his laundry girl would basically copy them down and then wash the sheets.
Yes, it's
So
famously
yeah,
dramatized in
not
the
a
movie with Jeffrey Rush.
sorry,
Famously dramatized in the movie with Jeffrey Rush.
Jeffrey Rush. Yeah. I saw the movie and then was fascinated because I'd heard about the Marquis de Sade and I'd heard about sadism, and I always thought sadism was a wanton thing, and it is. But his sadism wasn't. More and more, I believe that his sadism wasn't a wanton thing, and I don't think he did half the shit that he purported to do. I don't think he fucking got.
Oh no, he was definitely making stuff up. He was definitely making stuff up.
I mean, fuck. Oh, I mean, the 100 Days of Sodom was
Well, that's
was
fiction.
deliberate. There was fiction as. There was nothing about that was remotely real. I mean, I think there's a couple of auto asphyxiations early on, which were in the realms of maybe.
Yeah.
But
it just has murder after murder after murder after murder in it. So absolute fiction.
Yeah. And then and the torturing that goes on
Yes.
is unrealistic because people can only accept so much pain before their nervous system gives out. And people can only accept so much pain in such a time before their nervous system goes into shock. And shock will kill you. So they can't have been tortured like they were in the 100 Days of Sodom, because they would have died within about 20 seconds of what was going on. When you get shot, it's not actually the poking of holes in your skin that kills you. You might get unlucky and get an organ pierced by a bullet and messed up by a bullet. But what actually kills you is the breaking of bone and the smashing of arteries.
The shockwave. I've seen that like on what is it, Mythbusters, when they shot a ballistic gel thing and then showed you in slow motion the distortion, and you're just going, man, a bullet really fucks you up on the way through.
Well, today's bullets are also called spinners. That's the NATO-approved bullet. It's called a spinner. And when it goes into you, it has a slight deformation on one side. It goes into you, and then it starts to rapidly spiral and spin in the body, making a mess of your insides. And the idea is that when you get shot with one of these things, you die. And that sounds fucked, right? But
excuse me.
In fact, it is meant as a humane thing, because armies from the Second World War onwards discovered that if you wound somebody, you take 8 men out of the field. If you kill somebody, they move on past the dead man and keep fighting. So soldiers were being taught to shoot to wound, but to wound very badly, so that that soldier had to be evac'd immediately. And to wound someone that very badly, you've got to really fuck them up. So they would do things like shoot people in the kneecap, shoot people in the shoulder, shoot people in the elbow. And these are horrid places to get shot, because you won't die, but the agony is fucking unbelievable. This was also the heyday of the toe tapper landmine. The toe tapper landmine doesn't kill you. It just blows half your foot off.
Yeah.
Can you imagine the agony of having a shattered ankle and half your foot blown off?
Yeah.
I mean, you're fucked. I mean, you're no longer fighting, and you're screaming, and you know, your lower leg bone's shattered. Your your mates are pumping morphine into you just to shut you up, to stop the enemy from coming to get you. It's a terror weapon, because if you hit one toe tapper, how many more are in this field?
Yeah.
Usually minefields.
In Vietnam, they had the one they called the jumping jack, that it didn't explode when you stood on it. That you armed it when you stood on it, and then you stepped off, and it would fire a shrapnel bomb up, which would go somewhere between knee and waist height, and then do a lateral shrapnel spray, which could take out, again, not kill, but really horribly incapacitate 6 people. And because big explosive landmines are meant to stop vehicles, and yes, they stop humans, but it's a little bit wasteful from an ordnance point of view if it just takes out a human. The anti-personnel ones with the jumping jacks.
I mean, effectively, they blow your balls off.
And
and give you gut shots.
Yes.
2 of the most painful things you can have. And like, there's 6 guys laying around screaming, and the rest of the platoon's going, this is not good. How many other jumping jacks are there? They've got to creep in, get you, and creep out again while you're screaming, all the while pumping morphine into you. And that platoon's out of the action. How many more jumping jacks are there? Usually what happens is minefields are marked. They usually put big sign going mines, and the idea is that you deny the enemy an area, and you funnel them toward a kill box, basically. So you've got artillery and machine guns all set up, so they have to go this way, and the enemy knows that if they go this way, they're going to get fucking shot at, so they tend to back off. But then you get really nasty, and this was all through Vietnam, Laos, Cambodia. You lay down mines and you don't fucking say a thing, and just, it's tough shit if you step on one. And then of course it's a terror weapon, because everybody then goes, how many more are there? Where are there?
Yes.
And the sappers have got to go through with plastic rods on their hands and knees and poke and find every single one, which stops the advance for a week, 2, 3 weeks. There are, because of this, right, there are more landmines in Cambodia still active than there are people in all of Asia and Europe.
Yeah.
Still there, still active, still now going, ready to go, ready to jump up and kill you at any moment. And there's one of the things that they do with ex-Australian soldiers is they go, "Are you feeling a bit, a little bit PTSD? Yes. Are you feeling a bit angsty? Yes. Do you want to go to Cambodia and undo landmines and let kiddies not get fucking their foot blown off? You know what? That sounds like a good fucking thing." So there's heaps of Australians in Cambodia finding landmines and finding unexploded bombs that the Americans dropped. And these things are fucking huge. They're 1,000-pounders. They dropped them out of B-52s and they didn't always blow up. And, you get a farmer going through with a plough, hitting a 1,000-pounder and ba-boom. You've got a 20-metre circle that goes down 5 to 10 metres and no more farmer, no more tractor. So that's why a lot of Cambodian farmers don't buy tractors, which is the saddest fucking thing. So anyway, they go through and they go field by field by field by field, getting these landmines out. And because of the war in Vietnam and Laos and Cambodia, the world turned around and said, these landmines have got to fucking go. There's just no reason to have them. They're fucked.
Bit of a global problem.
And that's ridiculous. This is bullshit. And there are only 2 countries in the world that didn't ratify that treaty and still use landmines. And they are, of course, our friends, the United States of America and Australia.
Because we didn't want to offend the United States.
No, because Australia said quite plainly that Australia's too big to patrol. So we have to mine our own country. Otherwise we can't stop any kind of invasion. And the way they have justified this is they said, Australia has said, we promise we will never mine another country. That will never happen. But we will mine our own country en masse. And we have. But the way that it's done, and I know this because I know the guy who fucking designed it, scared me when he showed me. You know those garage door openers?
Yeah.
Right? He designed these mines that you can go to a field on a map. And these things last for 40 years. And you can press the on button and you'll hear a beep from the ground. Beep, 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 and the field will come active. And you walk away. Field's active. And then you go to the same field and go beep, 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 and they all turn off. And you won't see them because they're just they're under the ground. You won't see them. But if you walk on them and they're active, they will fuck your shit up all day.
There was an Australian inventor about 20 years ago, and I never heard what happened with this, but he came up with a landmine alternative, and this is like an anti-vehicle weapon, as opposed to a lot of people use landmines as a weapon of terror. But this is specifically an anti-vehicle one, and it was weird. It was like a box, rectangular box about this long, and it was a very weird sort of gun. It had all these projectiles in it, and it didn't have a barrel as such. When you fired it, these things would just burst out the front of the thing, and it would fire hundreds of these projectiles a second into a really concentrated point. And he proved you could take out any tank on the market because, yes, it's bulletproof and it's resistant to armor piercing. But when hundreds of these projectiles hit the same point within a second, it just punches a hole through. It's just physics at work. And he was saying this is a landmine alternative. People can't accidentally step on it after a war. you build in particular sensors and whatnot and do. And I never heard what happened to that, like, because the military were fucking buying it, but I don't know. Oh,
They
anyway.
still bought it.
Oh, sorry,
And,
just saying hello. I'm saying hello to Annette and Greg, by the way, who came and said
Hey,
hello.
Annette and Greg, they've still bought it. They still deploy it. The idea is it sits on the side of the road and you can see the fucking thing. You can see it. And it basically sits on the side of the road. You can paint it fucking red or orange and basically say, big fuck off anti-vehicle landmine. And if you touch it, it blows the fuck up. So you can't touch it. You can't bring metal near it. You can't bring brass near it. No one knows how that works. That's one of the big secrets.
That's one of the
no
tricks.
one knows, because brass is non-magnetic. It is the thing that you make landmine tools out of. You can't bring brass near it. You can't bring heat near it. They have been known to go off in 60-degree heat on their own. And you sit them on the side of the road, and it's basically, the road's closed. Go around. If you don't go round far enough, the thing blows out the other way. And you set it up strategically so it's on a bit of a cliff. And so you're not, the cliff's, road's closed, go the other way. And that's what they were for. They were a denial of access thing. And it was about not having something that would be a sneaky child killer after the war. The things also have electronics in them which turn them off after a certain amount of time, and they have a signaling flag that pops out of the mine that says they're off. And you can dismantle it now. But if the war's still going, you know how much time, and you can go in and turn it back on. Again with the bipper. So it's one of those weapons that is pretty nasty, but at the same time actually pretty fair, because it's not going to the horrific part of landmines is that they will, they kill kids. You're playing soccer.
For years after the conflict, yes.
For years, 20, 30, 40, 50 years after.
Yeah.
They're still, and the Italians invented a plastic landmine.
Yes, that your traditional detector couldn't find. Yeah.
Yeah, and that was pretty much the last straw. That was pretty much when the UN said, fuck this, no more. You can't find it, you can't see it. And they asked the Italians, well, what do you do when your war's finished? And they went, oh, I don't know, you just put them in. And it's like, well, what if the minefield's not marked? Oh, we don't know. Well, how do you fucking, how do you detect them? What if you touch them with a plastic probe? I'm not sure. Jesus, dude. How do you disarm them? Well, you get them out of the ground, and then you turn them over, and then you get them out of the ground. So you're going to dig over the top of that, are you? Fuck off.
Yeah. Someone invented a field clearing thing. It was like a big sort of armored truck with a long arm out front, the wide arm, and these heavy weights on chains, like as heavy as a human, weights on chains that would drag, and you'd push it out in front of you, because most landmines, human weight's enough to set them off. And it'd just be this thing going, like these big balls on end of chains going bonk, bonk, bonk on the ground. And the idea, it sets off any mines. And this thing is structured to survive a couple of blasts. But you'd still be mildly trepidatious being the driver going through.
Well, there was in the Second World War for D-Day, a thing called Barton's Funnies. And they were tanks and trucks designed to do particular things. It was the first bridge that extended out over a tank, and then you could drive things over a river.
Oh, yeah, I've seen that one. Yeah.
And there was one that had this tank, and it had a really reinforced front, like
Yeah.
lots of armor, and this
Yeah.
long pair of booms, and a
Yeah.
rotating spindle with chains and weights, and it would thwack the ground as it
Yeah.
moved forward and
Yeah.
blow up anti-personnel mines
Yeah.
and vehicle mines. And they
Yeah.
thought, oh yeah, fucking give it a go. And it worked really fucking well.
Yeah.
Apparently the guys driving the tank pretty much came out deaf. But so the next time they
Shockwaves.
did it, they gave them earplugs and ear
Yeah.
protectors. But it worked like a fucking charm. And
Yeah.
apparently you could run up that beach after it, going,
Yeah.
no mines here, bit
Yeah.
churned, but no
Just
mines
buckle
here. And they would
Yeah.
get these funnies to go up and down the beach and blow up these mines.
Yeah.
And they thought the tanks had extra armor at the front, and they had extra track because they expected the track to hit a mine and blow
Yeah.
out and have to,
Yeah.
be
Yeah.
re-strung. They never used any track. They did, however, have to, after about 3 days, bring them back in and weld more armor on the front because it used to blow chunks out to the point where they would go, okay, there is now 10 inches of armor at the front. We are no longer satisfied that a vehicle landmine will be stopped by that armor, and the troops inside are getting fucking nervous. We don't want nervous, funny drivers. So they'd come back in and they'd weld plate on. And because it was wartime and because they had to go fast and because the sappers were needed everywhere, the sappers were just welding 2 on the outside, 2 in the middle, just, one weld in the middle, 1 weld on the outside, 1 weld, so they'd only do like 4, 5. Yeah. What happened was the plates ended up being like a centimetre, apart from each other. And initially the drivers were going, yeah, not cool, but they still had 3 feet of armor. So they're going, oh, we'll do it. And they found that having the air gaps in between the plates were much, much better. Much better. The armor was holding up better. It was absorbing more punch.
Letting some of the force go through. Yeah.
Yeah, well, they didn't know that. They didn't understand the idea of multiple plates. I mean, that's how they protect the space station, the ISS. They don't have a thick armor. They have plate, Kevlar, plate, Kevlar, carbon fiber, plate. And you get these micrometeoroids going through 4 and 5 plates in 1 Kevlar and stopping. Now, you go micrometeoroid, what's that? That's a grain of sand.
Things that just fly through the cosmos. Yeah.
Yes. But when a grain of sand hits you going at Mach 55, it's going to do some serious fucking damage.
Goes straight through you, yeah.
And there's paint flecks that have come off satellites and shuttles and things that have bent whole sections of armor right down to the bulkhead. They were lucky as fuck in the space station because a monkey wrench, an adjusting screw spanner, was it was one of the ones that Buzz Aldrin dropped off the Apollo, because when he finished, Gemini, when he was finished doing all these things, he cleared up his workbench by just throwing everything over the side. And of course, they didn't know anything back then. So this fucking space junk, like this fucking big, was flying around the world at a fucking terrific speed in low Earth orbit. And this thing eventually hit one of the solar panels on the space station and made a big fucking mess. It fucking hit the central spine and took out like 4 big panels. Like it moved the space station off course. And thankfully, it took enough velocity off the spanner to get it to degrade its orbit, and it fell on India.
Yes, that's the problem. If they get the angular momentum, so they keep orbiting rather
hit you
than
again.
falling, and they accelerate. And
yeah, if it
all
goes and hits you once, if you hit a cloud of debris in orbit in 90 minutes, it's coming back. Right?
Yeah, and
this is why, remember the movie Gravity?
Yes, that's the premise of that movie. Although that was my favorite Neil deGrasse Tyson line was, the name of this movie makes no sense because gravity is never a factor. The movie should have been called Angular Momentum. It's just good. Oh, and also, hi, Toby. We're doing well, thank you. And hi, Slummeth on Twitch.
Yes. I happen to know that every single space program, spaceship, manned vehicle, staffed vehicle, now has the protocol that if you get hit by a debris cloud, get in the escape capsule, go home now. Leave the experiment, leave the fucking laptops, or maybe grab a laptop if you can, but get in the fucking ship and go. Because it's over. Your ship's going to be a mess in fucking 2 or 3 orbits. If the ground says hit the retros really hard and go higher and you'll miss it, yes. But then that's lots and lots and lots and lots of flights to repair the station, because there'll be fucking holes all through it. And also there'll be the carbon fiber Kevlar net. The Russians and the Americans jointly developed this. You send up a satellite which breaks into 4, and it carries out this big sheet that is angled. Yeah? And so what happens is the debris field hits it, and the whole thing basically collapses because the debris field is really fucking moving. It basically collapses, and then you use the ungainliness of it to shoot down spiderweb tendrils with weights on to drag on the Earth's atmosphere. And also, if you can get the rockets lined up just right, you give that a bit of a spurt as well, and you bring the debris cloud out of the atmosphere. Great idea, fucking expensive. And apparently they've built 3 of these things, and they're specifically for the ISS. If they can do it in time, they'll do it for the ISS, but they cost an enormous amount of money because you've got to get it up in a hurry, which means taking any ride that's going. So Tesla says $90 million, thanks, and they go, no worries. Fucking Boeing says $120 million, thanks, and they go, no problem. American military goes $400 million, and they go, yep. And the other thing too is that there's no guarantees it's going to work. The satellite itself has to work flawlessly, and the mathematics has to use pretty much most of Russian and American supercomputers all hooked up as one to get the mathematics just right. And they have to get this done within a day. It all has to happen in a day. So it's a fucking Hail Mary pass, and it costs a fortune. So This is why they're not deploying this all the time to get all the space junk out of the way. However,
Space is expensive.
well, at the moment, it is going to get cheaper because they're starting to find better ways to make hydrogen. Hydrogen has always been a problem because it's expensive to make, because you need electricity. This is why they're saying nuclear power is going to be so great, because it's going to make a lot of electricity, and with electricity going to make hydrogen. Well, you're just fucking kicking the pollution can down the road, so it's bullshit. But what they're finding, because they're taking a cue from our friends the plant, they're finding that you can use tiny little solar collectors and hydrogenate seawater. You float these things on the sea, yeah, and they only collect like a litre of hydrogen, but they cost like $20. So you can have 5 million of them out on the sea, and then you just go and collect them. You just put them on a line, and you just go and collect them, and then put them back in the sea, and then put them back in the sea. Now you put a sunny coastline like Australia, and then you've got fishing trawlers collecting hydrogen all day, every day, and then a little bit adds up. The other thing too is on your coastal roads in Australia, where it gets nice and hot, you can put thermocouples and solar and just run water from the sea through it by using the heat to suck it up out of the ocean and blow the hydrogen off one end and blow the oxygen out the other end. And again, you can just slowly, gently fill up a tank. It's a one-way valve. No one's getting hurt. And then just go along, pick up the tank when it's half full, totally full, then pump it into a bigger tank, and then you're constantly getting hydrogen with this low maintenance set and forget thing. And it's being seriously considered by a lot of countries, especially your oil countries, your Arab countries. The Saudis, for example, are sending so many students to Australia to learn engineering, to learn infrastructure, to learn civil engineering. So that tells me they're getting out of oil.
Well, there was the old saying, I remember back, like what in the rise of the Saudi oil barons, like in the 70s. This is I think it might have been a Peter Ustinov show. And he said, like, he took this guy and said, like, oh, yeah, my grandfather rode a camel. My father had an automobile. I have a Rolls Royce. My son has a private jet. His son will have a fleet of private planes, and his son will have a camel. If we're looking at oil, that's what's going to happen. Yep. They have for a while known we should exploit the fuck out of this because it's a limited resource.
And they also stopped because the Saudis always used to advertise their reserve. And in 2005 or 2010, they stopped publishing their reserve. And that was the big
peak oil story.
Pardon?
Peak oil, as the saying goes.
Well, yeah, that was
we've reached the peak of production.
And they basically went, "Oh, that's not good." I mean, frankly, the Saudis have got a shitload of oil left. Let's not kid ourselves. There's still half of it there, but we're not using less of it. We're using more of it. Yeah. The worst thing about it is that only 3/4 of the oil goes to fuel. And fuel is taking up more and more oil. But we use the oil to crack into all kinds of shit that we need. Most of our medicine comes out of oil. Most of our plastic comes out of oil. Almost all of our synthetic bearings, almost all of our machine tools, all of our electronics. Your iPhone, represents a litre of oil, just in its manufacture and its internal workings. You're talking the glass, you're talking the electronics, and you're talking
all those little cogs and gears that keep it going. You've got to well lubricate them.
You've got to well lubricate them.
Yeah.
And the actual electronics is made out of synthetic materials, which are made out of the chemicals that are made out of cracked oil. People don't get that the cracking process is effectively what's made the modern world possible. And so there's this big tug of war between what we're going to need to keep our modern world going and what we're going to need to keep our modern world fueled. So it's, look, you know, a lot of people say, oh, it's a big conspiracy. The oil companies are looking for, you know, they're not looking for alternatives to oil. Bullshit. They are looking for alternatives to oil big time. Because if anyone is smart enough to bring up the big alternative to oil, say they invent room temperature hydrogen liquid. Let's just say that someone does that. The oil companies are the only people who have the distribution to get it round to every engine in the world, realistically. Also, the oil companies don't want to go out of business. They are a multi-trillion-dollar empire. Also, by the way, uses oil. The other multi-trillion-dollar empire is makeup and cosmetics.
And there's a lot of shit in that too, yes.
They spend so much making that stuff, and they spend so much convincing women that they're ugly and they need makeup or they're going to die. And they're going to die alone.
That's probably more evil than the oil industry, in fact.
I'd say so.
I just wanted to change the topic again. Also say, hi, Stella says she's listening while doing admin work because she's had a sick day.
Hey, Stella.
And Fox is just finding sexual innuendo in things you say, which is always good. Ask about cocktail time. I'm already doing that. This is, I made this today. I made a cocktail on Friday night. It's going live on my cocktail channel tomorrow. A Sazerac with banana liqueur in it. A banana rack. And I had to do the close-ups of the pouring liquid today, and I often then milk clarify that because I don't want to drink it at the time, and I have a bit of fun. So this I made today, and this is whiskey and brandy and some fruit liqueurs, and I used pineapple because it's got to have some acid, and the basic drink doesn't have any citrus juice in it.
Yeah.
So I had to add something, lemon, lime, or pineapple, and I thought pineapple would go well, and so I did that. And I was actually, it smelled fantastic. Like, these don't always smell much or whatever. This one just smelled fantastic. So I was really hanging out to taste it, and the taste was really surprising. It's really good. It's just really smooth, and it's like fruity, and because it's got banana liqueur, and I played around and put some apricot liqueur in it as well, and pineapple juice. So it basically tastes fruity with a bit of brandy. I can't taste the rye whiskey at all.
So effectively 6 of those and you're standing on your fucking head.
Oh, this thing that I made today, how many shots of alcohol did I put in? I put 2, for six shots of 40% spirit, and then 2 shots of liqueur, which is much lower alcohol, and then 2 or 3 shots of pineapple juice, which is diluting it.
Well,
and then
that will dilute it to nothing.
And then the milk as well, because when we do the milk clarification, it settles into curds and whey, and the curds stay in the filter, but the whey gets added to the thing. So it's diluted a bit, because basically a Sazerac is an all booze cocktail. It's an undiluted cocktail. It's whiskey or cognac or both, and a splash of absinthe and a splash of bitters. And this one, for fun, has some fruit liqueur in it as well. To be
How was your day? I'll have a Sazerac, thanks. Ooh,
yeah.
That bad. Yep.
Yeah.
Make it 4.
It's basically a Sazerac's an old-fashioned with an absinthe rinse. It's like that's what it is. It's an old-fashioned with just a hint of absinthe, because then you're deep down in the dark Cajun lands with a little bit of that French influence of the absinthe in there.
But I think the one you've made I'd like.
Things I'd made that you'd like. The fucking coffee cocktail I made. And because I did a couple of experiments, and so I kept all the experiments. You got a big fucking bottle of this chocolate coffee cocktail waiting for you.
As soon as I come around there, we'll be watching movies. I'll be drinking the cocktail, and by the end of the 3rd movie, I'll be going, this movie is genius.
Yes, we've got to have Star Wars.
It's the end of art. We don't need to travel any further into the human condition, because these vampires from Japan truly understand the katana's spirit.
Yeah.
As you go to tie it.
Yeah. We got to do a Star Wars marathon, because you haven't seen the new Star Wars movies.
Let's do that. That'd be awesome.
Absolutely.
Can't do it this week.
Oh, well, no rush. We'll do it. Foxy's making a Blood and Sand, which I always thought was a spectacular name for a drink. It's an old one. It's named after a Rudolph Valentino movie, Blood and Sand. So it's from the 20s. So it's like whiskey, sweet red vermouth, cherry brandy, and orange juice. If you're doing yours without the juice, Fox, and I'm not the hugest fan of orange juice in cocktails. I think it overpowers too much. So you're virtually making a Manhattan. If you're doing whiskey and sweet red vermouth with a little bit of cherry brandy, a Manhattan's the whiskey and the vermouth. So, but that's what I always do. Take a classic and go, ooh, and what would that be like if I just put a little bit of this in it? Fruit liqueurs and fruit brandies are really fun to add to boozy cocktails and see what they do to them. Annette wants to watch the movie with us too. That'd be good. Yes. Especially with a big bottle of chocolate coffee cocktails pre-made.
Well, technically, when we air... See, the thing is we can't do them live because there might be little fuck-ups.
Yes.
And if there are, we have to sort that out. Otherwise, we'll get the shittest suit out of us, and I'm not in a position to have the shittest suit by Disney. And Disney is notoriously litigious.
Yeah. Yes.
And they also don't like black people or Jews. Anyway.
There's a long history of that. Walt Disney, one of the better jokes in The Simpsons in the early things, when it's like the guy who makes the Itchy and Scratchy cartoons is clearly Roy Disney, as in Walt Disney Jr., and because he always refers to his dad who invented it, and it's very obvious it's the Disney studio because he's got his dad's head frozen in a fucking freezer as well and all this sort of stuff. But I was talking about when the kids go to Itchy and Scratchy Land and they watch the documentary, and there's a very obvious Steamboat Willie piss take and whatnot, and it's just going, and he, was America's hero for many years, with the slight misstep when he made the short film Nazi Supermen Are Our Betters. Because Walt Disney was a fucking Nazi.
He was a fucking Nazi. He was a fascist. Fucking, this biggest story I love was Henry Ford.
Yeah.
Made 15. Okay, this check this out, right? In the Second World War, Ford trucks moved American and British shit around the world.
Yeah.
Ford trucks moved Russian shit around the world. Ford trucks moved German shit around the world. Mitsubishi trucks moved Japanese shit around the world and were more reliable. Anyway, the Toyota Land Cruiser was in fact invented for the Second World War. Still in production today. After the war, kept very quiet. After the war, Henry Ford sued the American government for bombing his factories in Germany.
Yeah.
Thus interfering with his business. And he won. He fucking won compensation for being a quisling and fucking getting his factories in Germany bombed. They didn't put him in fucking jail for helping the enemy. They fucking gave him money. I was just gobsmacked when I fucking heard that. I thought, that's
General Motors,
a hanging fence. That's Nuremberg.
Yeah. General Motors did the same thing. And when someone was saying, you seem to be helping our enemies, and the GM head spouted the famous line, what's good for General Motors is good for America. And it's going,
that's right.
You're selling engine parts to the Germans so they can make tanks.
That was where that line
that was their defense.
What's good for GM is good for America. And that was where it came from. And fucking Boeing fucking managed to slip the Betty bomber to Japan just under the wire because they knew that war with Japan was coming, and they slipped the Betty bomber to Japan on license and did the deal in 1941 in December. They finished it in December 1st, 1941.
All right. So I'm also just saying hello. Gecko's come in a bit late because he's already sucked down a bottle of wine, which wasn't like 3 in the morning in your place. But I see Annette's saying if we have copyright trouble with Disney, watch a Japanese werewolf movie. I've done that to AIDSy. I think the two classics were Tokyo Gore Police, which was the supernatural division of the Tokyo Police. That do thing, and the other one had the fantastic name of Big Tits Zombie, where zombies attack a Japanese strip club.
And the Vietnamese girl who was all into money, she went first.
No, they ragged on the Vietnamese girl and the Filipina.
The Japanese aren't racist at all. No. Fuck. What was the one we saw where there was the amputee girl who had all 4 limbs amputated and she was walking around on stilts?
And she put weapons on them at one point, didn't she?
Yeah.
I think that was Tokyo Gore Police. I think that was...
That gave me nightmares.
It was pretty fucked up.
At the time, we had the whole thing of me saying, this is going to be a good movie where the people's insides stay on the inside and not on the outside, isn't it? And you'd go, yeah. And then we'd watch it. And then it wouldn't be. And I'd have to make the appropriate noises at the appropriate time. But some of them were genuine. Like I'd see
yeah.
Oh, come on.
Yeah, what the fuck was that? Yes.
I am so disappointed that I cannot remember how many days of night?
Oh, 30 Days of Night. That's
30
like the
days of night. I can't remember a fucking
violent,
thing.
most violent vampire movie I've ever seen.
But I was sitting there commenting, fucking cracking jokes, and I remember seeing it, and my eyes and nose were dark, like bruised. So I think what had happened is I'd given myself a concussion.
Probably.
And I might have had a fucking seizure. I don't know. But I have no recollection, because I remember coming to yours and going, so we better watch 30 Days of Night. And you were going, we did that.
Yeah.
No. That was coming up next. Yeah, we did that. And you were going,
you on YouTube.
Dude. I went, no, we didn't. And then you played me the tape, and I'm going, I have no recollection of this.
Yeah.
At all.
No.
And then later on, I remember the first bit of it when he was locking the gate. She missed the plane.
Yeah.
And then the other bit was a wooden box, and someone fell in it, and there might have been a grinder in it.
That doesn't sound familiar, but I think
I don't know.
My two favorite bits was when you've got this little group of protagonists who escape the first slaughter, and there's only about half a dozen of them left from the whole town, and you're on about day 13, and they're been hiding in an attic for 13 days, being as quiet as they can. And so what's that noise? And there's a girl walking down the street, and she's just going, someone, is there anyone left? Someone help me. And someone immediately goes, we've got to down and help her. And it goes, no. And she walks past them, and then horrible shapes are moving in the shadows behind her. And the vampires knew there were people somewhere, and they kept one person alive, and they were driving her through like bait. And the heroes didn't fall for it. And then the vampires go, well, that didn't work. That's boring. Your usefulness is over. And the one line I remember, because the vampires were all these Eurotrash guys. They all had this Eastern European accent. They're like 500-year-old Eastern European vampires. And this girl, as they loom over, she goes, oh, God. And the boss vampire just looks up at the sky and goes, no, God. And like, oh, dude. And the other thing they did that squicked me out, he starts up a record player at one point, and because he's got his fingernails are these big claws, and he starts a record player up, and he just drops his fingernail into the groove, and it plays like an old scratchy record player. It just resonates up his nail, and it's really unsettling. Like he's not doing anything horrifying or scary, but I'd never seen that before, and it's just really unsettling how he plays the record through his fingernail. I was just like, ugh.
I was watching a doco about vampires, and where a lot of the myths came from, and there's a few things that were really interesting. So there's this castle in eastern Germany, and there was this woman who was buried in unconsecrated ground, away from everyone else, and she had a stake through her ribcage, and they were going, ooh, that's not good. And they did a bit of research on it, and they found out that she was a countess of this fucking family, and they went into it. She died of lung cancer. She smoked tobacco to give herself relief from the lung cancer. Oh, the irony. And she was trying to get pregnant so that she could give her count husband an heir. And one of the things was that you could get more fertile if you drank wolf's milk. So they would milk these wolves in the middle of the night, and
Oh my
it
God.
hurt the wolves, and they would howl.
Yeah.
So the
yeah.
villagers would hear the wolves howl from the
Yeah.
castle. So the children of the night were howling the fuck out of themselves because they were getting this wolf's milk so that she could drink it. And then there was the whole sunlight kills vampires. There is a disease. It's not called porphyry. It's called something else. Where sunlight burns you. It's actually a real thing. And it is commonly linked to a disease that people get, where the only relief they get from agonizing pain is if they drink blood. That's a real thing.
Like a weird thing to discover. Sorry, I just want to also answer a question, Gecko. I see all the comments. AZ doesn't see any of them, which is why not an enormous amount of our comments. Do you want? Okay, half an hour. Do you want to do an angry bunch for the last half hour?
Yeah.
All right. I'm going to post the link for anyone who's in the mood. I think Gecko wants to come in, which should be amusing because he's had a bottle of wine. So there is that. The woman you described, was that Elizabeth Bathory or something? She's the one who was reputed to be Dracula's bride or something. There were all these legends about
something
her.
like that. Something like that. And yeah, she drank the blood, couldn't go out in the sunlight, was drinking wolf's milk. She actually did have an heir. She died of cancer, and the villagers thought she was so fucked up for drinking blood and being hit by sunlight that that they wouldn't bury her in consecrated ground. And the long nails thing of Dracula, right? And and all those people. It was very fashionable for the very rich to have long nails because they couldn't do anything, and it was a sign of them being weighted on hand and foot.
Yes, would literally need other people to do everything, including wipe the bum. Yeah, which was a big thing that the rich had wipers. And speaking of professional wipers, man. It's Gecko.
Loving it. Loving the shit out of it.
Oh, Rogue One. Nice. So I've got to get AZ to watch that because
I liked it. I liked it. I hope the robot comes back because I like that actor. He was in Firefly.
Yes. Alan Tudyk. How are you going, Gecko?
I'm doing all right.
All right.
So I've got my new blind.
That is a big bottle. How much is in that bottle?
This thing doesn't focus, but it's 1.5 liters.
So that's 2 bottles of wine.
Yeah, okay. Well, I had the other half the other night, so I've only had this much.
You've only had,
you've only had a bit.
I mean,
whatever.
Yeah. But I bought 2, so I mean, I have another one.
No, I saw someone else showing that off on YouTube. That exact bottle, actually. That's like supermarket wine. That's actually pretty good, apparently.
Yeah, I'm not gonna have that tonight. I have all the days off because the unemployment thing. So
yeah, sort of same. I got a bit of a blow today financially. So I'm gonna have to organise that.
That's right. The legend of Elizabeth Bathory, Stella remembers that she was confined to her castle. Oh, yeah, she was the one that was reputed to bathe in the blood of virgins, which, again, was actually probably not true.
Not true. She drank
that was the legend that got around.
She drank
but that's the one I've heard. She thought it made her young. And one of the stories had, she whipped a serving girl who dropped something, And then she went to her chambers and realized the serving girl's blood was on her face. And then when she wiped her face, the skin was much smoother. And so then she started bathing in the blood of virgins to preserve her youth. That's it. Yeah, that was. But, the aristocracy were all inbred and fucking deserved to be burnt at the stake by the peasants. So I don't care.
Yeah,
oh, my God, what's that?
That's an 8-track, isn't it?
It's a big box. Can't even tell. What is it? It's just a big box. No, you're trying to show. Oh, it's a camera. It is a camera.
Say, is it a camera?
It is a camera.
Stars.
Oh, a large format camera. Look out.
Oh,
wow.
Stars.
My dad had 2 of those. And he actually
is it a antique or is it a new antique?
No, it's a genuine antique.
Is it possible to get film for, or is it just a beautiful thing to have?
No, you can still get the film for it, definitely.
Do you ever take photos with it?
I have not actually. We picked this up at a secondhand store for like $20. Real lucky find.
Yeah.
Why do people not get that stuff like that is worth so much more? I'm glad for you that they didn't get that. I'm very glad for you that they didn't understand that. But they don't understand the tech.
But it's a very expensive hobby. Like, the film is still produced and you can still print from it. It's just really, really expensive.
You basically have to do it all yourself. You have, either do it yourself in your own darkroom or take it to an expensive photo lab in town.
Yeah.
Where you have this big enlarger apparatus that you have to have.
Yeah. So, because my dad was a photographer, he was a commercial photographer, and he had a couple of those. So, like 30, 40, 50 years ago, he was using them professionally. And even then, they're expensive. The film for them was expensive. But because the negative is about this big, you could do really huge prints that were crystal clear. So it was for very high-end photography.
And of course, the photoshopping of those prints was done with real bats and real masks and real screens.
This one was owned by apparently this guy here, M. Fritz, was like a local to Houston or Texas, like photographer. So this would have been used in actual newsprint.
Yeah, would be that sort of one was like for portraiture. We do wedding groups and that sort of thing.
Well, I think that one was actually a journalism, like used in real life newspapers and stuff.
That would be such a pain in the ass. Are you good? I do think you've got a journalist to set that up and whatnot. It's such a pain because they're huge bastards. It's such a pain in the ass to set up.
That's I think 3.5 by 4.5 pictures. I don't have the film box somewhere.
Depending on the model.
They actually have 8-inch by 10-inch cameras you can get, which are like double the size of that.
Yeah. Depending on the model, the film was like a single exposure. There was this cartridge that you had to sort of put in and shunk, and then you'd pull this thing back that was taking the cover off the negative, and then you'd take the photo, and then it'd be shunk to seal it in, and then you'd take it out and develop it, and then you'd have the negative that was this, or as Gecko was saying, an 8x10 that was about this, and that's
just a negative, and then you'd enlarge it onto a positive. Photo paper.
Yeah, and that was for
imagine the detail. You get. You do reconnaissance out of a plane with shit like that.
Oh yes, they didn't use 35 millimeter for aerial reconnaissance. They were using these big ass things, and the operator was a very skilled specialist who would line them up, because it was like, you don't want to go out, do a big reconnaissance, and let some knucklehead who doesn't know how to load the film properly fuck everything up, and then you come back and develop it and go, well, okay, we've got a couple of good pictures of your thumb, you idiot.
No, those pictures are taken by like giant lenses on the bottom of SR-71s as they flew over, target areas or whatever.
Yeah.
Well,
Have you heard about the satellite photography, the spy satellites? They were like school bus sized telescopes that would take, and they would drop film canisters every once in a while that would get caught by planes.
Yep, the Corona satellites were fucking amazing. They thought, well, because they came about because of the balloons. They would blow up these balloons and put them into the jet stream, and hope, because they timed the shots, and hope that they would take photos of Russia. And 3 of these 100 balloons fucking came back. Most of them got lost, and about 20 of them got shot down. And the Russians actually used the film from these balloons to put in their space capsule to photograph the far side of the moon. So the shots from the far side of the moon came back thanks to Kodak. They cut them down and put them in their own spaceship, because they basically had solved the problem of Corona on the film. And the Corona satellites was this just nuts thing where they'd send up this satellite. It'd take heaps of photos, and then it'd drop the canister. A plane would fish it out of the air, and then they would take it straight back to Washington to get looked at. But if it fell into the sea and they couldn't find it, they had a salt plug in the thing. It would wear through, and the thing would drop into the ocean to be never found again, because they didn't want the Russians to have it.
So my dad actually said that, his pictures aren't worth printing, and why would you have a big printer? So I printed out all of these pictures that he's got on his Facebook.
Wow.
Oh, nice.
Wow.
Pretty neat.
So I'm going to send these to him and tell him, look, your pictures are fine.
Yeah.
They look pretty good.
Yeah.
They look pretty darn good.
Yeah. That's awesome. I'm loving the train, the sunset, the beach, and
lots of nice travel photos there. Classy stuff. Like it. Neat.
So I said, I haven't told him about this yet, so I'm just going to leave a note that says you're going to have to cut these and frame them yourself. But
actually, if I was him, I'd put one big frame around the lot and stick it on the wall. But
wait, there's more.
Because I'm sentimental.
Okay.
Let's see what we got here.
What magic gets unrolled here?
Oh, this is... I can print all kinds of things.
Oh, wow.
Printed your own Baby Yoda. Nice. Nice. Oh, dear.
That's a fucking huge printer.
There's a huge one. Ghostbusters 2. Nice. Vigo. That's Vigo from Ghostbusters 2.
Yeah, the real one is probably twice this size in width. I think it's something like 48 inches wide. But I mean, a real picture is actually a photograph.
Yeah.
And it's not a painting at all. It's a photograph where they
Yeah.
actually had the guy stand there, and they lit him and did all the makeup so that it, from the point of the view of the camera, it looks like a photograph
Yeah.
or a painting.
Yeah,
Paint.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
So they
This
could
is-
have him like talk and turn his head and stuff, and make
Yeah.
it
Yeah.
look like the painting is alive.
Yeah. Yeah, they
This
actually
is-
did a good job with the limited special effects.
But they
of the
never
time.
used that shot in the actual movie itself.
Hmm.
Oh, they very rarely do for the poster.
They do
Um,
all this work and then they don't use it in the movie, which is pretty weird.
The Star Wars poster is a classic for that. I remember the first ever Star Wars poster. They had the lightsaber in the middle, and they had
Yeah.
Luke on one side, and they had Leia on the other, and they had Han and
You
and
kissed your
Obi-Wan
sister.
and the robots in a big triangle format.
Yeah.
And that pose was never used. And it was a beauty. It was going to be easy to do too, but they never did it. They did a lot of that. The
And-
Star Wars peeps.
This is actually 24-inch paper. My printer will print on 44-inch paper, so twice as wide plus 2 inches.
wow,
Ooh, nice.
wow.
Decadent.
That's a
I like
massive printer.
Yeah.
I remember we had a really big printer because we were printing off plans, house plans, and I had to teach my old man
You can see my panorama print.
Oh yeah, that wide one
Yeah,
there.
yeah.
Yeah.
That's 81 inches long, about 7 feet, and 24 inches wide.
Damn.
Yeah, right.
Nice.
And there's the printer there.
Okay.
That's about half of it. You know, you got this toolbox block. I can't pull the cable out any further. So.
That's okay. Raid is asking, did I take on my father's photography bug? More than anyone else in my family, actually. And with the advent of YouTube, I kind of latched onto the video. Actually, I did video stuff at uni as well when I was with AZ because we had a TV studio and whatnot. I did a fair bit of messing with photography over the years, more than anyone else in my family did. But I mean, these days, you know, this is my primary camera. I always interested to think like my old man, because he died 30 years ago, he would have either loved or hated digital photography. I think he would have loved it because he used to fuck around.
He would have got into it.
Like messing about with doing tricks in the dark room for developing, but also he would do the literal cut and paste photos. Just take with a really sharp blade, cut bits out of photos and put them together.
There's different things you can do, like in the dark room, you can modify the dynamic range. This is just a print, but if I wanted to make this brighter, this area here, I wanted to make that brighter, I would just cut out. I would expose this, then I would cut out a mask that would shadow all this stuff out. And then while I was exposing this image, I would just hold that mask inside and just take it away at some point.
Yeah, dodging and burning. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes, I think Annette, my dad, would have loved Photoshop because he would do it in camera. He would fuck around. He would literally cut and paste and reshoot. He would do double exposures, dodge and burn in the dark room, just because he's bored because he had the whole setup there. And
what I've seen is just taking a sheet of paper while you're exposing the enlarge, and just hold it in front and just do it that way.
Yeah, soft
in
edges.
Certain areas.
Get soft edges on your dodge and burn by just moving stuff. Like he had little like circles on the end of a stick, and it's like I want to burn in the background, but that person's face is in shadow, so I don't want to burn that in. But if you put a hard stencil on it, there'd be a weird edge on it. So it'd have this thing with a circle and just be moving it around, so the edges of the exposure were really diffuse. And I think he used to just amuse himself by fucking around in the dark room with
And
stuff.
it's pretty versatile what you can do in there.
Yeah.
And the other thing is, with digital photography with your phones and stuff, you always hear about people talking about, oh, you don't need so many megapixels. But, what if, this image is like 100 megapixels, but you only care about, what's over here. And this might be 8 megapixels, but you can crop that image in there and still get the full resolution you need for
exactly, and blow
8
the
by
shit
10
out of
print.
Yeah,
and get amazing detail.
The next generation cameras take that level of detail, and it isn't just the pixels. They are processing a limitless depth of field and multiple lens ones, so they're looking slightly around some objects in a 3D way. And
you're talking about the light wave cameras.
That may be
light field cameras, like the. Let me look it up.
That may be what one of them calls them, but I know that the idea is you have this one shot that has an unbelievable amount of digital information in it, and like you said, you can zoom in on little bits and they'll be crystal clear, but you can also completely change the depth of field on focus, so different bits are highlighted.
Yeah. That's the light field camera where you can actually change the focus after you've taken the picture.
Because it just stores so much information. It's absolutely mind-blowing.
It's not so much the information that's stored, it's the way the image is captured. The sensors has a different filter in front of it. Like each pixel has its own lens in front of it.
Yeah.
If you look up light field camera on Wikipedia, that explains the whole thing.
It is the amount of information. Like the first digital camera I had, which was one of the first digital cameras on the market, which took images that were this big by modern standards. But again, they were, in terms of file size, tiny. I remember having this early Sony camera that actually worked off floppy disks, the mini floppy disks.
The Mavica,
Mavica, and it would take about 10 images onto a floppy disk. So was that 1.1
I have a couple of those somewhere, I think. I have like one Mavica that has the floppy disk and one that has the mini CD-ROM. I'm going to be right back.
That would be the big memory one. Yeah. So those individual images were about 100 kilobytes. And these sort of camera we're talking about, individual images can go up to gigabytes. And because they just hold a mind-blowing amount of information. And yes, they have special lenses, they have special filters, but it's literally, instead of just going, oh, that's an image, it's going, and it is recording a million data points for everything it picks up. So you can just go, oh, that's in focus, that's out of focus, that's light, that's dark.
Can I do a bit of advertising now?
Yeah.
Called Halide. You can get it off the App Store, both Google and Apple.
Yeah.
And it's for photography, and it's fucking amazing. It basically takes your phone camera, and your phone camera is already fucking good, but it just times it by 10. It gives you tutorials. It gives you basically all the shit that you'd get out of a clicky camera, with lenses and stuff. And you can go auto, and it'll do a really good job. Or you can go, no, I want to touch everything. And it tells you how to get depth of field. It'll give you your rules of thirds. It'll give you portrait, and it'll light your photo. in different ways. It'll go from portrait lighting to normal lighting to portrait lighting to noir and silver screen. And, you know, no shit. You'll just do whatever you want. But also you can get depth of field up to 150 meters. And that's spooky. Mind you, you've got that. It recommends you put that on a stick or a tripod because it takes about half a second to shutter it.
Yes, to capture the information. Oh, hi, Mega Leech, by the way. There's Rated saying is having fun but purely amateur with photography. Got a full frame Nikon D610, avoiding mirrorless. Yeah, I have a specific digital still camera I bought a long time ago, and it's been gathering dust for an extremely long time. The video camera still gets its daily workout, but or multiple times a week workout. But I don't know. This is my camera for almost everything.
A Canon Rebel XT in 2006. You know, it was an 8 megapixel DSLR. Paid like $650, and my decision was, if I'm going to spend this much money on a camera, I'm going to use it as much as I can. And I've put well over 20,000 shutters, you know, pictures on it. Some of a lot of those are on the computer from a time lapse video. But
yeah. And when I bought the DSLR, I used it quite a lot, but it just got superseded by other technology.
I guess Sony just released a new one, the A5, which is a full frame sensor. It's got ridiculous specs. I can't remember it right now, but it's
the one that
it's mirrorless. So
yeah,
you always hear in news conferences how you hear the shutters going off in these news conferences. That's going to go away pretty soon, I think.
But yeah, most of that was electronic anyway.
Actually, you know, in Japan, and that's where they make a lot of the beautiful cameras, it is illegal to have a photographic device that doesn't have the noise of a shutter, because there's so many people doing upskirts on trains,
bombs, yes,
that they have to have the noise of a shutter going off.
Yeah, so I think that's why in a lot of phones you have that sound built in.
You have sound built in.
You can turn it off here in America, but I guess you're saying in Japan or whatever you can't turn that sound off.
You cannot turn it off here
unless you put your own firmware on here, which you can do.
Absolutely can.
Sorry?
It's a bit of work, but you can put your own Linux-free firmware on here, or on the iPhones you can jailbreak them and modify settings that you wouldn't otherwise be able to change.
You're saying you can, Angry?
Yeah, I just took 2 photos with my phone right next to the camera. You just set your phone to silent. If you set your phone to silent, it doesn't take.
Mine won't let me.
I believe it will, but I believe it will because I think I gave you the phone. Oh no, you got a new one.
I got a new one, yeah.
Yeah, but it's as simple as on the iPhone, the little switch on the side that's silent or noise on mode. You switch to silent, and it doesn't make any noise.
I've done that. I've switched it to silent and taken a photo, and it still makes the noise.
I don't know what you're doing then. I want to answer a question from Annette. She's asking, should she buy Galliano? It's a pretty bottle. Look, what you should do, and yes, I agree, Galliano is that big sort of pyramid Eiffel Tower looking bottle. You should go online and look up recipes with Galliano, and if you like the sound of them, you should get it. Galliano is like a fucking 80s liqueur as far as I'm concerned. But I'd go Liquor 43 over Galliano. Liquor 43 is a like vanilla honey herbal liqueur. But just look up online Galliano recipes. And if you see some that you want to make, then get Galliano. What do you got there, Gecko?
Those are all stickers from a company called rockauto.com. Every time you order from them, they send you a magnet with like a person's different picture of their car. like fancy car or whatever.
Okay. So you've ordered a lot from them then.
Yeah. Anyways, the so-called boss of the house is telling me I need to go to bed.
Well, yeah,
Okay.
so do I, man. So do I. So no arguments here.
Good night,
Thanks for dropping in, man. Catch you later. Oh, and you got the Galliano Amaretto. I think that Galliano Amaretto might be better
That's
than
nice. That's
I
nice.
think. Annette, liquor is spelled Licor. Liquor 43. It's Spanish. It's where is it? Here it is. It's this. Looks like this. It's a it looks like the Galliano vanilla. It's the same sort of thing. You see, color-wise, it looks like Galliano vanilla. It's just they don't even bother to put the labels in English, which I fucking love. Secreta Ricetta Familia. It's obviously saying secret family recipe. The 43 stands for like 43, botanicals in it. But this is like a honey vanilla herbal thing, very much like Galliano. But I would rate this higher than Galliano. But yeah, literally, if you see recipes for a Galliano drink and you like the sound of it, then maybe that's a reason to buy it.
What's really nice?
Yeah.
Is to have a shot of Galliano and beer, like a normal beer. You have a sip of the beer and a sip of the Galliano. Sip of the Galliano, sip of the beer, sip of the beer, sip of the Galliano. Really different flavoring. Because what normally happens is people just drop the shot in the beer. Yeah. But if you actually just sip it back and forth, it changes taste as you go. It's really nice.
Right. The reason I'm laughing is just out of the blue, you sounded like Con the Fruiterer to me, going, sip of the beer, sip of the Galliano, sip of the beer, sip of the Galliano.
Well, I am in Northcote, home of the Greek.
Exactly, right? Exactly.
And I got abused by a mob of Greek old people today because I was going through a door and they did the classic old Greek person thing of they gathered in the fucking door to have a chat. And there was like a mob of. I said, excuse me, good people, just want to jump through. And they've all given me the Greek eye.
The hex,
I'm old and senior to you, therefore you may not A, talk to me, B, talk to me in English, or C, expect anything from me. And you would want me to move. I am due respect, and I am due everything. And so they were sort of standing their ground, and I just sort of went, thanks, guys, and gently shoulders through them. Fuck, I got dirty looks after that. But I had to get in and had to do the thing. Those liquid handcuffs are very insistent. But I am here to tell you that I made a major breakthrough with a computer today. And I am here to tell you that I am very nearly at the point where I'll be asking for cast members.
Nice.
Yes, very nearly at that point. Yeah. Got to have a big chat with Dave Blumenstein. Got a really good idea about how we're going to do that. And I hope he goes for it. And I hope it's easy too. And I've also talked with, I know his real name and I've forgotten his handle, so I'm not going to say it, who's going to take on narrator and...
Nobody. You're talking about nobody.
I'm talking about nobody. Nobody's going to take on narration and production and still need Miss Angry to do the whisper.
Yeah, which is easy done. Like Raiders... Now I've brought up Con the Fruiterer. Raiders going, I miss the comedy company. Those days were so innocent.
They were, weren't they? Everybody hated Banks. And that was the thing to hate.
They invented the term bogan, but
Kylie Bogans. And what was the other thing? was Keating was really good at insulting people, and they brought on famous people to insult, and they were getting phone calls from famous people going, "Why haven't you done our guy yet?" And they were going,
Yeah.
"Oh, okay, sure."
Yeah.
And they have to write sketches involving their famous guy. Well, he's dead now, so I can say it. Kerry Packer, apparently.
Yes.
His people rang up
Yeah.
and said, "Why haven't you done Kerry Packer? He's, you
Yeah.
know, he's." And they went, "Okay." And so they made the lizard.
Yes. I mean, another one that can be fun is looking up old Late Show and Degeneration clips on YouTube, because again,
Degeneration was so much fun.
at the time they seemed really cutting edge, and what's funny is how quickly the cutting edge dates. Like, you watch it and go, I still find a lot of it really funny, and I would occasionally watch it, but now and then you go like, wow, we just thought this was the best in the early 90s, and hey,
But
time's gone, that's okay.
they turned into Full Frontal and
Working Dog Productions. They've basically had hit after hit after hit. You know, they've made movies. The thing they've done most recently for the ABC is Utopia, which is basically about the public service in Canberra. And apparently, my favorite thing about that one, which I think must be the ultimate compliment to them, they get messages from public servants in Canberra. Yeah, someone said I should watch it, so I watched it. And first I laughed because I recognized everything, and then I cried because I recognized everything. It's just like, it's like they've captured the horror of public service bureaucracy so well that initially public servants laugh, and then they go, "Oh, I made myself sad. That's my job."
But it's funny, you know, the public service is in line for a lot of shit because they deserve it. But, you know, when there's a fucking disaster on, or some shit goes down, or there's a war on, the grey-faced men in those big buildings do things that fucking...
Oh, I'm working for the public service at the moment on contract, but I'm working with the public service, and I see what they do. And in some aspects, they're very slow moving, but because they're also subject to the whims of politicians and changing government. So they don't want to move too fast because logistics change. But the amount of stuff they do is fucking incredible. But anyway,
it's basically the logistics of the country.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
Every city relies on supplies of food, water, air, and fuel getting to and out of it. If any one of the public services fell down on the job, the cities would fall over. Can you imagine the electricity system shutting down?
Yeah. And although it's privatized, there's still oversight from the public service. The public service has to do the core administration and oversight. The sale and management, and they've done all this stupid bullshit of privatizing it, but the public service is still, how much do all our bills go up? And then every time they change something, like, and again, the Liberal Party with their worship of competition, they go, I'm going to make them change how they do it because that'll bring in more competition. You go, you dense motherfuckers, it's going to cost them all tens of millions of dollars to make this change, you're saying, and they're going to pass that straight on to consumers. They're going to get that money back, you dense motherfuckers. You go, oh, but it's 5% more competitive now. I go, yeah, but they have
and
to.
And it's going to be 20% more costly.
Yeah, fuckwits. Anyway, it's bedtime. It's bedtime. Okay. It's bedtime.
Okay. I love your heaps.
See you all later.
Thank you very much, lovers.
Where's the off button? There it is. Bye.